Okay, this video is going to sort of show how to create a login form and basically get it to display different data depending on what actually happens on that, providing custom error messages. So this continues on from the math quiz example we had earlier, and in that we worked on our configuration where it basically loads up the data, from our different files. Now I'm just going to basically disable the load of that because it's already loaded in. It just slows the process down. So I'm just going to tab across, because I'm only doing that because I've already got data in my tables. If you don't have data in the tables, get some data in there. It'll make your life a lot easier. What we're going to be dealing with mostly today is this users table. What I'm going to do is change this load form table. This is going to be our main login page, so that when we click on this, it's going to load up some different things. Now if we think about it in terms of a bit of a design, what we sort of want is to go from the login page, and there are two different types of users, an admin and a normal user, and we want to display two different pages. We're just going to create a couple of blank forms, one called admin. I should have actually called that admin form. It's always a good idea to basically keep the names and details. I'm just going to enable the content so we can run the macros if we need to, or when we need to, and a standard user form. And these are also their sort of menus. Always best to give them as descriptive names as possible. And I'm not going to worry about too much because the name gets shown up the top, but you probably want to go into your design view and edit them. But we're only going to worry about editing our, it should be login form menu, user form menu, and just login form. So I'm just going to only edit this one, and we're going to add a bit of a label at the top. I'm just going to do this very, very simply. Please log in. Please log into the math quiz, something nice and pleasant. Obviously, we can go and sort of customize the fonts, and I think we need properties. I can never remember where the font sizes are. There we go, font size 11. Let's change it to 20. And what you notice is it doesn't always resize, so you can just double click to resize it. And we want to add in a couple of text boxes. And so one for the login, and one for the usernames. So we're going to name that username and password. Like we did before, what we need to do is actually give these some names, because text one is not that useful. So let's call it username. The key thing here is always remembering to rename any of the boxes where you can type in and edit information to something that you're going to be able to remember. So got those in. Also with this one, with the data for the password, let's change it to a password box because we don't want people to see what we type in. And then add in a final login button. Comes up with all these options, like blah 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 blah. Just hit escape, cancel it. As before, give it a name. Login button. Always a good idea to put the word button on the end of the button names, and rename it something like login. Now what we're going to do is go and add an event to this. So on click, so when we click the button, we're going to run the code builder, and it comes up with our section where we're going to run the code. Now what we can do is we need to basically make a couple of variables to store the username and password, make our lives a bit easier. So username, string. These are not always essential, but it just makes the life easier, because otherwise every time we want to get the username we have to do me, which means the current form, dot username dot value. Very, very tedious. Whereas now, otherwise, I would just be able to write p word. So value gets whatever's stored in there. So now uname basically stores whatever we type in. Pword stores the password. Now we need to basically run a query that is going to search the users table to find a user ID, see if it exists, and a password that exists. So what we're going to do is create another variable to store this SQL string. So this is the bit of text that we're going to use to search the database. And we're going to have an rs Not sure why that's not sort of popping up, so let's just pause this for a second. Okay, so if you're getting this user defined type error popping up when you're trying to use a DAO record set, what we need to do is add it into our tools. So we're going to go stop program tools, references, we're going to scroll down to Microsoft DAO 3.6 object library, and that will now allow us to actually reference these properly and save ourselves a lot of hassle. Next we're just going to, because now when I run it, it's coming up with an error, but that's only because I haven't actually done anything or typed anything in. So it's telling me invalid usage null because I didn't type anything in. If I type something in, no error messages. That's an error we're actually going to have to check for, and that's what we're going to do in a little bit. So what we're going to do is our first step is actually go and check that. So if, let's say, if is null username, or actually we need to, because they're having more than one, we need them in brackets, is null password, then we need to print out a message. To do that we can use a message box. So you can come up with a better message than that. This is just a quick one. Otherwise, this is where we want to do our search for the options. Otherwise, search for the user and matching password. So what I'm now just going to do, back out of that. Oh, it's still coming up invalid usage null. Okay, it's appearing way up here because we can't actually put something null into another variable. So we need to actually just modify this a little bit. I'm going to cut that bit of code from here and only assign it if there's something actually typed in. That means we've got to change this bit here to me.password and that to me.username. So if I save that, go over it now. Now it's popping out with that error messages, but if we type something in, even though only one of them, but nothing's happening when we do it on the other way because we haven't actually done the actual checking yet. So now what we're going to go through is finish off the rest of our login. It's going to happen at this point. So we've got these two. Now we need to actually set up what we're going to search for. We want to select everything from the users table. We could only select the username and password, but we're just going to keep it simple. Where we'll call it user ID in the table. Really important that you actually match it up. So I've got a user ID that it all matches up. So what have I got? Users, and it was a lowercase u, so let's make sure it's the exact same thing. So where user ID equals, and if it's text, we've got to put inside a little set of quote marks. So I'm going to put a little quote, starting quote here, and I want to join something onto it. So, and now I'm going to give it the variable. If I try and just move up, it's there. So I want uname, and I'm going to append it on again, and once again a little closing speech mark. So that will print out this. What's quite useful is to actually create a little message box that pops up what you're actually going to write up. Now I need to link up the database. So I'm going to set the DB to current DB as we did before. And set RS, or the record source, to database.open record set, so that gets all the record, whatever this query returns, and we give it the string. So I'm basically giving it this information to do something with. Okay, so we've got that working there, and now we need to actually go through. So do while, so keep going through and do this while it is not the end of file. So EOF means end of file. I'm just going to add in a loop right at the end, because all this while stuff needs to go in between these. Now what I'm going to do is create another little variable to basically store the username, so we can use it a little bit easier. It's record user, RS user, and I'll explain these in a little second. And record p-word is assigned to RS exclamation mark password. So RS means the record source, exclamation mark means get this field from the first record. So what it'll do is it'll get out of whatever the answers are the user ID that matches that's there and the password, and store them in these two little variables. Because now what we want to do is go if record, if the record user ID equals the username, and the record password equals what we've got stored in the password. So basically saying if the username and the record basically match up, so this one matches the right password for this, then we need to say success and login. Otherwise, end if, so otherwise we basically want it's sort of not working. And then, so if we get to that point, move next, we're going to go to the next one and find the next person to work through. But in theory, we should actually only have one user in this. So we're keeping it a bit simple. We can obviously look at modifying this, so it gets everything. But what we'll do, so we've got the success and it's working. Now we need to remember that we've got two options, user and admin. So what we need to do is check if and admin. So now another if statement, if rs exclamation mark is admin, then show the admin menu, Otherwise, show the user menu. So, in order to do this, two very similar commands. Do command dot. The first thing we're going to do is close the login form that's appearing on the screen. So do command dot close AC form, and we need to give it the exact name. So what we've got there is it is called login form with a capital, and then do command dot open form, and I once again need to give it the correct name. In this case it is admin form menu. I'm going to copy these, paste them in, because the close command is always going to be the same, but this one is just going to change to user. Endif. So we've got most of these all working. Now what we sort of might want to do is basically sort of say if the password was incorrect, let's put another message on. So let's add in, actually let's go just test it all first, see if it is actually running. So I'm going to close that, open up our login form. I actually need to work out what one of these is. So admin was A, and I'm just going to change that to 123, and also user 12. I'm just going to set that to 123 as well. So admin and user 12 I've just set to 123. So admin 123. Oh, forgot a bit of code. I've got an equals there to assign it to. A bit of information. So let's just try this again. So okay, so it's showing me what I'm doing, where the user ID is equal to admin. It's done that, but for some reason it hasn't loaded up the next page. Now let's try this and let's do the 123 again. Okay, not sure what's going on here. Okay, so we've got a bit of a logic problem. It's not loading it up. So let's go back and do a bit of debugging. So what we're going to do is have a look. So it's showing the message correctly. That's fine. Selecting everything from the users table. Yep. Where it's user ID equals the username. Yep, so that was popping up properly. Okay, what we're going to do is see if it's actually getting here. This is where message boxes actually become in very handy. So once again, let's run this. Admin 123. Okay, so it is getting into the loop, so it is finding an answer. But where we're getting a bit of problem is, I'm guessing, here. The record P word and matching these two up. So what we're going to do is try a little bit of a string compare. Because sometimes you can't use the default, just equals. And string compare. So let's try this and see if that one works. So admin 123. No. Okay, so I've gone through and done a little bit of debugging and worked out that what's actually going on here is I've actually done the username twice. And so I should have actually been saving that into the password. And what we'll do is just cut out that little bit of debugging code I used. Save this. Back into normal view. 123 admin. Yep, here. Okay, so that error didn't still work, but what we also forgot is that string compare needs to equal 0 if it is, will equal 0 if it's true, because these are all true false values. So let's just try this once again. Login form, admin, 123, log it in, yep, here, got a little success message, and it's loaded up my admin menu. Let's try it again with user 12, password 123. Yeah, success, user form menu. So we've got it opening up the correct menus. So I can now get rid of my little debug messages to let me know if I'm actually in the right places. Those message box debugs are a savior. And if it's not working, now I need to put some error messages on. Now what I'm going to use here is basically another variable. This time it's going to be Boolean, a true false value, to see if it has succeeded or not, if one of the passwords was incorrect. Success as Boolean. And we're going to assume that it is false to start with. So what we go here, if it works, that's fine. Whereas if not, we're basically going to say it is false. So we need to do, so we're going to assume it's there only at this point. If it is successful, success will be changed to true, otherwise it's just going to stay as false. So if it is not success, then we want to do something. And what we're going to do is just a little message box. Incorrect password or username. And that will only generally occur if we get one of these wrong. So let's try admin. Okay, let's come up with a nice little error messages. What I would suggest you might want to do is go and modify it to see if we can get it to display the correct message. So if the admin code doesn't exist, sorry, if the user ID doesn't exist, display a user ID error message. If the password is incorrect, display an incorrect password message. So think about the logic that you can apply for those. Other than that, that's how we create a login form, reading data from